Good morning. It is such a great privilege to introduce our speaker for today. She studied Bachelor of Arts in Communication, major in Speech Communication in the University of the Philippines, Las Cañas, and continued her studies speaking of Master in Management, major in Agribusiness at the same university. She started working at IRRI as an office assistant in 1987. Then she was designated to be an audiovisual assistant, training assistant, and assistant manager. She previously worked at the training center and dealt with training development materials, training courses, and team building facilitation. She also acted as a resource person in communication and women leadership related topics. Presently, she is assisting programs 4, 5, and 6 in project management and monitoring, and doing other program-related activities as an assistant program manager. With her hard and fruitful work, she has already been honored 4 service awards from IRRI. First in 1997, second in 2002, third in 2007, and the very recent, where she was awarded the 2012 IRRI Award for Outstanding Administrative Support. With her numerous achievements, she is also a second placer in the International Evaluation Speech Contest and International Impromptu Speech Contest in a modular public speaking course held in IRRI last 2005. She is also into videography, photography, designing, and even events organizing and hosting. Today, she will be sharing her lessons. Learned on the Media Skills Workshop held last 19th to 20th of March 2013. You are in the seminar of Facing the Media 101, learning from the books. And our speaker for today is no other than Ms. Gina Zarsadias.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming to this seminar. This is different from what I'm doing because when I was asked to give a seminar, I was asking Taku, what will I give? Will the audience be interested in budget codes and budget monitoring? But it's so timely that at that time that after several days after they asked me to give a seminar, I had the privilege to attend the Media Skills Workshop. This is a 2-day workshop sponsored by the Media Relations Office. And I titled my presentation as Facing the Media 101, Learning from the Pros. The pro is not me. These are the pros. They were our coaches during the workshop. And from the descriptions on the board, you will see that they are really credible facilitators because they work in the field. Like, for example, Andy is a former bureau chief of BBC London. So we thought that that was also a good opportunity for us to be discovered. And also, Dan Baker was a TV journalist in an independent TV channel in the UK. And these two people were very supportive. They were really coaching us because that workshop was really hands-on. They were not just teaching us the theories, but we were asked to do a lot of exercises in the last 2 days. So basically what I'll do today is just a sharing of our experiences during the workshop. So I'll be just sharing with you some tips on how to prepare for a pre-recorded interview, or some others would call it a canned interview. A live interview, which for some is easier, for some is tougher. And making a statement. For example, if you will be asked to give a statement for IRRI, for example. And I will also be showing you some of the exercises that we've done, and also the comments of our coaches for those exercises. Because during the 2 days, each of us had a chance to do 3 exercises. One, a pre-recorded interview, a live interview, and giving a statement interview. So we were told that before you do an interview, these are the keywords, ASK. Phase one of before the interview process is to assess. Assess what, is there something that, is the topic is something that you are responsible for. It's not because somebody from BBC or from GMA, TV7, or Channel 2 come to you, you are so excited to just grab the opportunity. First, you have to assess whether you are the right person to do that. And then when you know already that, okay, I think I am knowledgeable about that particular topic or issue, you have to ask, would I be the sole interviewee for that particular topic? Because you have an idea of how to construct your materials. Or will I be one of the 10? Because you might only have 20 seconds of that when aired. So it's also important to know some background. And then, as I've said, you have to know the issue. That's very important. One of the tips that our coaches told us is that we don't have to think about what the reporters will say, because what matters is what we are going to say, because we will be the source of the content or of the interview. The phase two, prior to giving an interview, is you have to know your strategy. What will be your story? One difference between a mere presentation and an interview is that normally your time is very limited. Alice is nodding. So even if you talk for 1 hour, probably your interview will be edited and then you will just see on TV like 15 seconds of what you said. Therefore, you have to be very critical about all the words that you are going to say. That means that you have to be very simple. The first thing that we have to put in mind, as told us, is that we have to think first of our conclusion. Why? Because when we do our conclusion, it's already a summary. Some of us are very knowledgeable, that we have a lot of stories to tell. But we were given the tip that as much as possible, if you can think of short sentences in like maximum probably of 1 minute, so that the most important things are already in those sentences, especially during the canned interview, where they have the opportunity, or even the live interview, that they have the opportunity to edit your materials. Because even if you talk and talk and talk for like an hour, and you haven't got into the important points, when they do the editing, they cannot get anything from what you've said. There will also be possibilities that your interview will not be aired because they cannot get something, or they will be airing something which is incomplete. And therefore, when you saw it on TV, no, I said that, but that's not the first part. I said something in the last part, but probably they were in a hurry to do the editing. Some will do that. And another thing is your performance. Performance has something to do with your presence, especially when this is a TV interview, because an interview could also be over the radio. We had only like 2 exercises about radio interview, but we focus on the TV interview. So performance is important in the sense that you have to look and sound credible. Well, you can be credible based on your knowledge and based on what people would see on you. Remember, there are some people who we know that are very knowledgeable, but when they speak before the public, they are very nervous or they don't look confident. So some people would think that, I think he's just making up those things. So it's also important that you have to convince the audience of what you are saying. The phase 3 is also something related to yourself. You have to be in control of yourself. Do not be intimidated by the interviewer. Some of them are nice. Some of them are very intimidating. Maybe Dr. Barker and Dr. Castillo would attest to that. I know that they've been to many interviews in the past and in the present. So, but you have to know that just like in a presentation, you know what you're going to say. Therefore, no matter how intimidating they will be or no matter how pressuring they will be in terms of asking you questions, just relax. Don't panic. You hold the key to the information. So you can acknowledge whatever the reporters would say, but you can also ignore actually some of their questions. That's one of the tips that they've given us. Even if they're asking you too many questions, if you think that those questions are not part of your strategy, if the questions are not part of the story that you would like to tell, you may not answer the questions, or you may trail your information in such a way that they'll be the one to follow you in terms of the sequence of the interview. It's not just like a beauty contest that you have to answer what really the MC would be asking. This is your show. In terms of the tips, of those tips rather, we were told that there's a general impression, again, general impression that men are less emotional. They are more rational. And therefore, if they're talking about the issues, they told us that if you're a man, you have to give more empathy to the situation, rather than just being cold and just say something very straightforwardly. But it depends, I think it depends on the topic. And I know many women here would react, are we not credible? Again, we were told that this is a general impression that it's not really because of credibility, but they say that women are more emotional when they talk about some topics. Therefore, you have to establish more credibility when you are talking about an issue or a topic. How do you establish credibility? Again, of course, knowledge is very important. I mean, you have to know every bit of the topic before you face the interviewee, and also sometimes the physical aspect. So if you are a very simple woman, you don't want to dress up or something, when you are into this type of interview, probably you have to exert a little effort to dress up or look more presentable than your normal days. Some of the learning points, and some of them I've already mentioned a while ago. You can be selfish in terms of the information. If, for example, especially during interviews wherein you will be asked too many questions that are controversial, and you are not in a position to answer those things, you may not answer. That's selfishness. The word selfish, in terms of the word selfishness. Imagery has something to do with using words that are more descriptive. If you don't have to show any picture or picture, for example, in an interview, unlike in the presentation that we have our PowerPoint, but in an interview, normally you'll be the one to be shown on TV, for example. So if you are talking about your project in a drought-tolerant areas, you have to make use of descriptive words so that the audience would realize how dry is that area. Things like that. No time. No time would simply means that you just have to, as I said, give the more important things on the first few sentences of your interview. Because, especially in a live interview, they may also cut you anytime they want to. And remember that the media are not mind readers. So we have to tell them what we want to say. They cannot also, it's also very important that we have also to trust them. Remember that when we are doing the interview, we are trusting them the information. And at the same time, they trust that we are also giving them the right information. So those are some learning points from that our coaches have given us. Now, we go to the first type of interview that we had, the pre-recorded interviews. Some of my classmates, there were 13 of us during that time, they said that this is hard, but for others, they said that this is better because we have time to prepare. So the first thing that we have to do is to take responsibility on things wherein we can do something. So whenever we have to think of a topic also for this kind of interview, just like what we did, when we were asked to talk about a certain topic or to think of a topic, they asked us of our expertise. So it was hard for me actually. I don't know if I have expertise. And then try to make a strategy and stick to your strategy. So this type of interview actually would also require you to write down the things that you would like to say. And at the same time, try to think of your strategy, story, the flow of information. And then but the advantage of this one compared to the live interview is that you can pause after each question. Even if they are recording your conversation or your interview, after each question, you don't have to answer right away. You can gather your thoughts and just say the sentence because they will not include that on air naman, what we call the dead air or the preparing time. And of course, in making a good interview or good news, it's very important that you have a strong message. You don't really have to think of so many messages for the audience for that particular time. For as long as, remember, even in our presentation, for as long as you go out of this room and you will learn 1 or 2 tips from this seminar, it would be, I would be happy because it means that there's something that has stick to your mind. And the good use of language would simply mean that you make use of languages that would be understood by a general audience, not just by scientists, because when you're on TV, everybody from all walks of life, from all ages would be watching you. So the more general that you can use of a language, the better. And of course, again, your presence. It's very important. Now, I'd like to show you one example of a pre-recorded interview. This was done by Andy. Andy Nelson was my classmate. As I've said, all of us had had the chances to perform in such a way that we did the exercises, and these were unedited. These were given to us by our coaches after several weeks. So, but they did not do any editing because they also make the interview very short. So let's watch and see whether some of the tips were practiced in this exercise.
Okay, so name and position first of all, please.
Hi, my name is Dr. Andy Nelson. I'm a geographer in the Geographic Information Science Laboratory at the International Rice Research Institute.
Again, that part. Establishing credibility, it also means that you have to establish who you are, what your position is, and your experience. And that way, the audience would know that you are just not a nobody. You are a credible person to talk with a particular topic.
In the days before satellite mapping, how on earth could you get an idea of whether rice production was working and the harvest was going to happen in the way that you hoped?
See how he exercised pausing?
The Department of Agriculture would rely on surveys and statistics conducted in a number of farms across the country. But we've heard from the department that they're not entirely happy with this approach. They feel it's not reliable enough and it's not actionable information. By the time they do the survey, it's too late to actually do anything about it if it has been a bad harvest because it's done at the end of the season. So they came to us and requested, could we use some of the technology that we're developing to give them what they call actionable information, so we can tell them something, a forecast of what the harvest is likely to be. And satellite imagery is one way of doing that, because it's more than just a pretty picture. It's actual information about the status of the crop.
So therefore, there's quite a lot of pressure on you to get this right, because you are offering them effectively real-time information.
Again, this will not be recorded. And this will not be aired.
That's right. We're trying to give them near real time as best as we can. If you can imagine looking on Google Earth or Google Maps,
because they will edit it.
You've all zoomed in. You want to see where's my house, and you feel really disappointed when it's not there. But when you do see your house and you have a good image, you think this is great. This tells me something about what's going on. And the government is really after that level of detail to tell them something of exactly about how the crop is doing, where it's good, where it's not so good, and then we can say, what can we do about the areas that are not so good, and what can we learn about the areas that are doing really well. So it tells them a lot of information in advance before the season is over to ensure that they can get a bumper crop.
Remember, he was talking about satellite mapping, and probably some of the audience would not really understand that very well at first glance, but he made use of examples, like when you go to Google Earth and you look for a house, and if you will not find it on Google Earth, you will be frustrated. It is the same information that the reason why they were asked to come up with some tools that would help them, that when scientists would or people would look for something, they can show something online.
And so in the Philippines, will the satellite mapping that you'll talk about solve this age-old conundrum of becoming fully self-sufficient?
So you can do many things while thinking.
We see what we're doing as being a contribution to that end. We're never going to solve all the problems, but what we can do is make sure that the government has at its fingertips all the information it needs to make the right decisions in the right places at the right time, so that it does have a much better chance of guaranteeing that they will reach that target by the end of the year.
Okay, so they got that. So based from that clip, do you think there's something that can be shown on TV already? Did you get some information, valuable information? Yes. If the answer is yes, therefore this means that that clip is good, or that interview was good. So based from our coaches, these are some of the good points from that clip. One is that, of course, he takes some pauses. Even it would take, don't pause for 1 hour, a few seconds, or probably maximum of 1 minute will do, just to gather what are the things that you would like to say for that particular question. Don't think in advance, just focus on the question. And then he answered direct to the point. So don't beat around the bush. This is not an opportunity for you to have a long chit-chat with a media person. Just direct to the point. And as I've said, the interviewer can already take some part of those clips to be aired because there's already an information available. What are the things to improve for that particular clip? Again, as I've said, the presence, the performer, no? So he was wearing a dark colored shirt without the collar. Sometimes they would really advise that you wear TV, what we call a TV-friendly colors. Blue is one. I think red is also good. The brighter colored one. Do not wear stripes, especially if it's linear, like horizontal lines. Because as you can see, sometimes it's being distorted. So there will be some glarings on the TV. Now, this is just the basic flow for a pre-recorded interview. You also have the introduction, the statement, and the recap. But unlike the presentation where you have 1 hour, here you have just a few minutes. And therefore, your hello is just more of like a simple hello. You don't have to say too many things on the introduction. Just introduce yourself, just establish credibility. What do you do? What's your position? Where do you work? That's enough. And the roadmap is just on your mind. In the introduction, you already know what flow of information are you going to tell in the next few minutes. And then the statement is just statement of the problem. If you will be the one to introduce your topic, just a short sentence, one or two statement of what the topic would be for that particular interview, and already the solution or the impact of of the issue, and then just say thank you, or sometimes you will not have the time to say that. Instead, you can just have a short recap by one sentence again, going back to the topic of the interview. Again, on language, we talked about this because media personnel are not scientists. So they are not into understanding Oryza sativa, Oryza glaberrima, things like that. So if you have common names to use, just use the common names. That would be helpful. And short sentences. Again, why? Because the longer the sentences are, the more flowery it will get. So it's very hard for them to edit. And there may be a possibility that they will be editing the good part. But if you have short sentence, it will be easier for them to edit that. Being direct to the point, that's said already. And then, for the next particular exercise, I just want you to focus on the language used by my classmate here, which is Lily Molina.
Hello, good morning, everybody. I am Lily Molina, Senior Chemist and Environmental Scientist of the International Rice Research Institute. I'll be talking about the hazardous chemical waste of IRRI. IRRI is an agricultural research facility that's been accused by many organizations for its contaminating the environment with its hazardous chemical waste generated with its chemicals and used for its research work and the application of fertilizer and pesticides in the field. This is not true.
Okay. She's talking about an allegation about IRRI contaminating the environment, right? Because of our hazardous waste. But instead of saying, no, this is not true, we say, this is not true. So this is one way of also pacifying the audience that what we're saying is not really correct. Here is what we're saying.
Because
or what we're doing.
Through its safety office and risk management and quality assurance office has an IRRI-wide hazardous waste management system in place. We provide proper training on the hazards of chemicals being used by all lab users, fertilizer and pesticide applicators, and we also inform them about its toxic effect on the environment and human health if they are not properly disposed of. Some chemicals that we use are being recycled and others are being reused or treated to make them less toxic and safe for safe disposal, while other hazardous wastes are collected and disposed of through our safety office. And that was done through accredited DENR service providers, those that are really involved in hazardous waste treatment and disposal and transporters. As a result, I can assure you that we have policies and procedures in place to ensure the safe handling and proper disposal of all the hazardous chemicals and waste we generate at IRRI. Thank you very much, and that's all for now.
Got an axe to grind.
Do you think people should be scared of this kind of
Okay.
Good.
So, if you are not somebody who's working in the laboratory, can you understand what she said? Is the language simple enough? So, hazardous waste, toxic materials, I think these are the general terms. So, I made use of that exercise for that particular information of using the good language. So it doesn't have to be, we don't have to impress people by using highfalutin words or big words. No, we just have to make use of simple words. And what's good in that particular exercises also is that she stated the facts. Instead of being defensive about what IRRI is doing, he just stated the facts and audience will understand that, oh, okay, they're not really contaminating the environment. They're doing something for that. And you can see her aura is very friendly, and she is an authority for that, but at the same time, she is friendly. Now, let's go to the live interview. Alice, are you doing a lot of live interviews? Not much yet. So, live interview doesn't necessarily mean impromptu interview. Therefore, if somebody asks you, can we interview you? They will call live interview, but you can still ask, what are the questions that you're going to ask me? It's not as if, okay, we're going to have a live interview. What's the question? Secret. No, it's not like that. So you can ask them, what are the interviews? You can also sort of like write down the questions if you have a pen, and then try also to think of your strategy. The only difference between a canned interview and a live interview, once they record it, it's continuous. Okay, so if it's for 2 minutes or for 3 minutes, you cannot pause and say, I'm sorry, wait. What's that again? I have to think first. No, that's not the case in the live interview. And since that's the case, this is really the time wherein you really have to prioritize the information and start with your conclusion. Again, when we say starting with a conclusion, it's basically or simply means that you just have to think of what could be my summary for this particular issue that I'm going to talk about, because that's the more important part. And you have to focus. You don't have to answer irrelevant questions, because there are times that this is the opportunity for the media personnel to ask so much question. So if you think, since this is also live, that you cannot really think of the good answer, you may opt to not answer the question. So here's a sample.
Okay, so if you could tell me your name and what you do, first of all, please.
Yeah, I'm Dr. Maricar Alberto, an agricultural meteorologist from the International Rice Research Institute, and I've been working here for 30 years.
How much more
Again, establishing credibility. For some people, they will look at Maricar, she might be just came out from college because of her look. So some people may not believe her, but she established that she's been with IRRI for 30 years and she's holding that position, and that's establishing credibility.
difficult does it make your work at IRRI having to deal with climate change? Has that made things a lot more tricky to cope with, as it were?
Oh, actually, no. It is IRRI from the start has been working on issues about climate change. We've been trying to cope up with the impacts of climate change ever since it started. But apparently, climate change issues that just appeared about 10 years just now. And so IRRI is trying to come up with strategies to cope up with the impacts of climate change. And, you know, climate change could come as, it could be an increase in rain or sea level rise in some vulnerable areas, or it could mean less rain or drought or higher temperatures in other areas. So what IRRI is doing is to come up with varieties that could cope up with these extreme situations.
Okay, you will notice that also it's very conversational. And if you will notice, she is not facing the camera. Okay, when you are into this type of interview, don't worry about, you don't have to face the camera so that your face will be seen. Because normally the setup is the interviewer is hidden from the camera, but you have to look at the interviewer, not to the cameraman.
That could tolerate submergence, drought, saline environments, or have I said higher temperatures? Okay, higher temperatures. Yeah.
But presumably, as soon as you come up with a new variety that can cope with, say, drought, sea levels rise. The climate is changing all the time. The environment is changing. Can you keep pace with the way the climate is changing and produce new rice varieties to cope?
You will notice that the interviewer is pressing for more information, and the way he would ask questions. He said, "You said it already, but sometimes you don't have to be intimidated by those kinds of questions. And sometimes what she was saying is that she's just repeating some of the information to make the interviewer understand that IRRI is doing something, and these are those things."
Well, we cannot do much about climate change. So what we are trying to do is to have adaptation strategies, and that is trying to improve on the varieties that we develop, making them adapt to these different extreme situations, as I have mentioned. And there are also some mitigation strategies like site-specific crop management, such as shifting planting dates and water management.
But these things take years. You can't grow rice in
Yeah,
5
but
minutes.
these
And to
things
get
take
any
years
idea
again.
of whether your work, and we see a lot of it behind you here, is actually having any effect, takes years and years and years.
Oh, but we've started a long time ago, and so we have now available varieties that could thrive in these extreme environments, and it's a continuous process.
Okay.
So she has the answers to the questions, even if the interviewers say that, "Are you sure that the things that you're doing will take years before it can have an effect?" So again, the experts' comments on this type of interview. First, she established credibility, and she answered also in simple terms, conversational, and again, looking happy before the camera would make sometimes the issues, pacified. Just being looking friendly in front of people. And in a live interview, it's very important to just remember this, that the best way to control is to fully understand the purpose and objective of that particular interview. So if you know what they would like from you, and you know what you would like to give it to the media, therefore you don't have to be afraid of anything. Now, the last type of interview is giving a statement. Giving a statement is when you have to give an official statement, for example, for IRRI. And in this particular example, I made use of Nadia, who's working in the genotyping laboratory, and the position of IRRI in why do we have to create a genotyping laboratory?
I'm embarrassed by you, Violet. What's happened today?
Do you think you have to resign?
Good morning. Good morning. I am Nadia Vieira. I am the manager of the Genotyping Service Laboratory at the International Rice Research Institute. I want to give you a statement about the position of IRRI related to the creation of this new laboratory. Why we create this laboratory?
It's very important that you have to say, "I'm giving a statement." This is not her personal statement, that this is IRRI's statement about the creation of the genotyping lab.
If you have any questions, I invite you to the official inauguration of the laboratory next week. A concern has arisen about the need of this genotyping service lab inside IRRI. In order to meet a growing demand for molecular markers genotyping in the rice community, IRRI invests in a dedicated central facility with the best technology available. This new lab will run under full cost recovery approach to be able to offer the latest genotyping techniques to the IRRI's research teams and the Philippines partners. IRRI wants to offer this optional service because we believe that with the high quality research and high quality technicians that we have, this new platform will improve and accelerate the selection of varieties of rice and enable a more rapid progress in rice research. Thank you very much.
And why do you think that's not happening?
Okay, observe this.
What's caused the upset here?
Okay, when you give a statement, you just stick to the statement. You don't have to answer the questions from additional questions because this is an official statement and you might be saying something that is beyond what is supposed to be told. So that's the reason why, if you will notice, when you give a statement, you should have a hard copy of the statement. One thing I've learned when you have a hard copy of the statement is that you also have to make the copy presentable. Do not come to the audience with your crumpled paper coming from your pocket and then just roll it. So you should have a more professional looking statement or hard copy. And one of the things that, especially for people like me who have already eyesight problems, you can print your statement in large fonts, and you can make use of your thumb finger to use as a guide when you are reading your statement, so that you will not have to read it twice, or you will be in control of what you are saying. So that's one tip. I mentioned this already. So some more practical tips, whether it's a live interview, giving a statement, or the other. Organize our thoughts. It's very important. Except for the live interview, for giving the statement, it's very important that you have to write them down. You write your ideas several times until you come up with a very clear statement or a very clear message. And the main message should come out in the first, as much as possible, we were told, in the first 20 seconds, which is very hard. It's really very hard. But as I've said, there are types of interviews which are longer. If the media personnel would talk to you and say that we will feature you for 1 hour, of course you will not have to do this because you know already the background. So it's very important that you know the background of the interview. How long will it be run over the television, and where will it be shown, things like that. And some more practical tips in terms of our looks. Even if your interview will be done outside, it's very glaring, we were told not to wear sunglasses because they told us that you would look like a tourist. Yes, that's the correct word, a tourist. So if you feel that the area is too glaring and it will require you to really, wrinkle your eyes, you just look to just a better spot. Especially if the interview will be will be done in a place where you are more familiar. And as I've said, white or striped clothes must be avoided. And trying to be inside the frame simply means that because there are some people who are very, very moving, very movable. So try to stick, not really stiff, but try to maintain your area. Because sometimes you can see the monitor, but in case you cannot see the monitor anyway, the cameraman would tell you what your areas are. So if he will tell you, okay, You can just move up to this, then maintain that. And we had one classmate who keep on doing this. So it doesn't look good when it was aired, or when it was when we view that. Now, our Media Relations Office has a guide. An IRRI guide when we speak before the public. I have 20 copies here if you will be interested. This guide will tell us some of our responsibilities when we come out on public, making public comments. What are the types of information that we can share? How do we deal with confidential and controversial matters? And how IRRI can help us communicate. And there are some frequently asked questions that are contained in this particular brochure. I just took off some of the points that I saw in that brochure. So if they're looking for information with a certain from different areas of expertise, that's the time that we can talk to the scientists in different fields. But if they are interested in management issues, directions, you should not be the one to talk about it. They should go to the directors, or we can refer them to the directors. When we talk about IRRI, there are certain responsibilities that we always have to keep in mind. We have to be cautious because we are, no matter how personal our opinions are, whenever they say that whenever we make a public comment, we are representing IRRI. So our information should be scientifically accurate, which means that the information has already been published. And we should be open and polite, respectful, and unbiased. And if it's not our expertise, again, we should not be the one to talk about the other's expertise. We can refer it to them, or if we don't know who the person is, we can look for the media relations officer. We also have to be very familiar with IRRI's policy. IRRI's policy about the topic, or IRRI's stand about a particular topic. I was told that when there's a hot topic under the IRRI.org, you can check it. I check it out at IRRI.org/hot topics. And before talking about, if you know something about it but you are not sure, you can refer to that before talking about those things. And you can also consult across the organization. What are the examples of confidential and sensitive issues? For example, personal matters about the staff. If you will be asked, is it true that Dr. X is pro-private sector? That's why you have so many collaboration with this company, etc., etc. That's classified as personal matters because you are referring to a particular person. Unpublished research, this is also a sensitive issue. So I think if you are not the right person, for this golden rice, for example, Dr. Barry is one of the key persons to be interviewed about golden rice. And controversial scientific matters like IRRI is now producing GM varieties. I am often being asked about that. But of course, there's no camera before, so sometimes you can say something. But if there are serious allegations about IRRI, like IRRI is giving advices to the President of the Philippines that the DA Secretary has to be replaced because he's not doing his job. That's a sensitive information that I think we are not in a position to talk about. Now, if we are have the chance to be asked for advices, just make sure that it will not turn out as an official and political. It will not be misquoted as a political advice. Something like in SSD, we will be asked. I'm sure PI will often be asked, now, how can we lower the price of rice in the Philippines? Things like that. And Of course, we can. What they were saying is that we, being an expert in, for example, in this area, you can give advices based on our scientific findings, but it should not be misquoted as a general or a political advice. It was said that also when I was talking to Sophie, if possible, if you will be asked for an interview, if you could inform her before, or if not, you can just tell them or tell her after, just to make sure that they probably they also have some listings of how who are interviewing our staff, things like that. And these could be your possible questions. Is it always necessary to shorten your answers as much as possible? Yes. But I've said if you will be given 1 hour, you have the documentary, that's the time that you can talk longer. What do you know when you don't know the answers to the questions? Of course, you don't make up the answers. Just say you don't know, or you will be asking it to the right person, or you will find out the answers later. And how do you deal with media who keeps on asking controversial questions? You can, as I've said, you are in control. You can say no. You can tell them that you are not in a position to talk about it. You can stop the interview proper. And when a media person approaches you, again, let's go back to phase 1. First, you have to determine whether you are the right person. If you are the right person, probably ask Sophie or tell Sophie that you're going to do this. If you don't have time or she's not around, you may do it and tell her later. And can you say no to an interview? Can you? Yes. The third question, I asked this because we were not able to discuss this during the workshop. How do you respond to ambush interview? The ambush interview is just like when you're a celebrity being given the microphone. Sir, what can you say about this particular topic? Sophie told us that this is very rare of IRRI. Normally, this type of interview will be experienced by our directors, but not really the ordinary IRRI employees. So, but just the same, when you have this chance, you just have to ask the interviewer what do you want to know, and again assess. Going back to the usual protocol. When do I represent IRRI, and when can I comment on something as my opinion? As mentioned, whenever you make a public opinion, they said that somehow you are representing IRRI. That's why you have to be very cautious. I would say that after 2 days, my classmates and I said that really facing the media is not hard as you think. It's very obvious that we have some people who are already experienced, like Baroy Pamplona was one of our classmates, and he has done a lot of interviews, but just the same, he also learned some more tips. But it's not really as hard as others think, as long as we know what to talk about. Because that's the key. That the key is we have to know what we want to say. With that, I hope that your next interview will be more pleasant. Practice is also important in doing these things, but sometimes you cannot practice if the chance is not there. But your experiences in presenting is already one of the practices for this type of interviews. Have a good day, everyone. Unless you have more questions. You won't mind. It's the reason why my exercise was not here is because it was not good. I realized that when I was interviewed, my eyes are like this. I was so embarrassed. I didn't know that. I didn't have it. I had it in my external drive. But that's one of the things I realized because especially during the live interview, really my eyes as if I'm having a good time with Andy and Dan. I understand that there's a second workshop which will be held sometime in November. I'm not sure whether they will open it again to interested people because at the time this is the first time that they had this workshop and they emailed us several people asking if we'll be interested and they took the first 12 or 13 people who responded immediately. So if you are interested, I would recommend this because this is hands-on workshop. And the two, Andy and Dan, are really very accommodating. They are not intimidating even if uh, they are already real experts in this field. Any other questions?
Question.
Yes.
What about if there are instances that they did some editing, but they give the bad stuff? Example, like I think Akim, when he was interviewed, and they gave the bad, the bad interview. I mean,
This misquoted.
yeah.
The sentence that could be misconstrued or misquoted. That's the reason why.
It's about the Philippine rice self-sufficiency,
Mm-mm.
and he said this was impossible, and
Yeah,
the Philippines like, oh, is this a joke? So they focus on that.
That's the reason why we have to think of what we're going to say. As much as possible, we have to be alert because anything that would come out from our mouth is recorded. And that's the power of media. They can just take something that could be that could raise an issue. So when you strategize, you have to make sure that you will not say something that can be a subject for being misquoted. Yes, Val.
Okay, thank you, Gina, for this interesting presentation. 2 years ago, I had the opportunity to attend this course in Sri Lanka.
Wow. Okay.
Exactly the same guy. It was very interesting. When I came back, I sent the word to Asia that they should continue going. Actually, did it in platform in Sri Lanka. My opinion on it is, 2 days is not really enough to really prepare you to be a master in those kind of interviews. Actually, I would like it to be much longer than that. In our case, from what I learned from this guy, after the statement, when you make an announcement, you can still take one or two questions, but you don't have to exaggerate. But I observed that all of your batch, everybody was just walking back. Was it an instruction or?
Actually, there were some instructions, and some of our classmates who are always very friendly would do that particular thing. What Bal is saying is that during, especially when giving a statement, and after that, the media people will keep on asking questions. The more friendly people would oblige to giving the answers. But we were told that if in giving a statement, that is already your statement. Anything that probably clarificatory questions, you can answer. But if the questions are beyond what you are supposed to do, we were told that you just have to ignore them. So they will not take it as being impolite, but they will just think that this guy really knows what he's doing because we cannot we cannot pressure him to answer questions that are not supposed to be answered. But that's true. You can still answer one or two if it's really very much related to what you just said. It's fine.
Is there a way to control the media in terms of, say, for instance, they will interview you and they will say that they will air it in TV, but they will just say that they will air it in some time, but afterwards you cannot hear anything from them. Because I have an experience to even go to the field, there's a long interview, And they said that they will get back to us and tell us when it will be aired. And after that, they heard nothing. I only learned that it was aired when somebody from Pillar said, "Oh, I saw you in TV, something like that." Is there a way to control that?
We did not discuss it, but I also asked mom about it because she has done a lot of interviews, and I was asking her, "Do you know where your interviews were aired?" Things like that. I was telling mom, I think you should have copies of those things because it's also for your portfolio or for compilation, something that you can show to your colleagues or even to your
Because I
family.
know that recently there's a rule that before you agree for an interview, you should inform, say, so please, this is what I'm doing. Whenever so they should have the control. I don't know if you discussed that.
No, no.
Whether IRRI should have a copy, IRRI should really know when it should be aired, and not just simply agree on. Because they agree, they will contact us, then we agree. So I'm assuming that they have the control, but they don't have. So what shall
I will give that as a feedback. As far as I know, Sophie is revising the brochure also. And even for the ambush interview, she said that she will include that because it's not here. But we can give that as a feedback. You being one of the frequent interviewees. Any other questions? It's 11:35. Yes, Donald. Yes.
Is it possible to view the recorded interview after you have interviewed?
Yes.
And then we can ask them not include this part or this part?
Of the record.
You can say that, but there's no guarantee that they will do that. But probably what you can do if you really insist that that should not be shown, actually you can erase that in front of them. They can erase that so that you can be sure that they don't have the file. Because for as long as they have the file, even if you say it, because probably the more that they will be intrigued, why is it that he doesn't want this to be shown? But you as the primary source of information, they can erase that actually. Yes, ma'am.
What was your impression when you were seeing your own video?
I am not into live interviews. I'm not quick in thinking what to say.
My general impression is anytime when I look back to it, I can do better. You don't feel really happy with your own interview. I don't know if it was the same for you.
During our exercise, I wasn't happy because most of my classmates have their expertise. And when I was asked to give a statement, what statement will I go what statement will I give? I just know budget goals. Because it has something to do with issue. I don't have issue. I have to give an issue with accounting. So that's the hard part. That's why the topic is very important. I mean, what you're going to say is the most important. The other things can be learned, but this is something that you should know by heart. But you guys, you have your own expertise, so I'm sure you can talk very well. Yes, Dr. Parker.
My voice is very low. I was interviewed one of these pioneer interviews by Gene Harrow, and then I listened to it later. It was so bad, and I said, I said we can't do that again. And then I discovered that I was much better off if I did an interview conversation with somebody else. So later on, Bob Hurt and I did an interview which is called The Trouble with You Economists. And we just talked to each other. And it was much easier than you listening to me.
This is an example of a person who's more conscious when they see a camera. Because some people, even if you know already what to say, just at the sight of a cameraman, sometimes you get conscious, so you lost your thoughts. So if you are that kind of person, probably you can ask the organizer to make sure that the camera is hidden. That can be done. Because if that will be the source of your discomfort, you can request. Because if they will really like you because of your information, they will oblige. Because they are the ones who are in need of you. You don't need them. I mean, you have those information. You can have other channels, but that particular time they need you. So you can also make demands. That's what they're saying. Do not be intimidated by the media personnel because they are the ones who need you for that particular time. One last.
There are certain topics that are hot. First, self-sufficiency. Second, golden rice. Third, import-export of rice. And then climate change. If anybody asks you that question, you better know how not to answer.
I do have an experience when they asked me about golden rice, and I really don't know about it.
Yeah.
And the person asking me is from Greenpeace because they are against that.
Greenpeace, okay.
So what I replied, so as far as I know, there is no golden rice yet. And then, lastly, I am an economist. I'm not a breeder, and maybe you should talk to an expert later on.
Yeah, that's the right answer.
I don't like to give any.
These are the topics that I should say no to.
Okay, so just please be reminded that there will be seminar next Friday, May 10. The speaker will be Mr. Denner De Leon,
Wow.
and he will be talking about risk management, quality assurance, and information management practices at SSD. So with that, have a great day ahead, and let's give it up for Ms. Gina Zarsadias.